Well, hello there. Today I'm drinking a nice coffee from Proud Mary. I love my pretentious mugs. It's always fun to drink from these. Um, this one is kind of like a wine glass that brings out the acidity of the coffee, which makes it taste brighter, and you can taste more of the fruit flavors in it. So today we're going to talk about what I think of as the plight of the disposable hero. There's two books that I've read recently. One I really read the full series of. That is the Murderbot series. It's written by Martha Wells. The first book is called All Systems Red, published in 2017. And the second book is Mickey7, which I talked about briefly here in my March review. It's the first book in the Mickeyverse, as Edward Ashton calls it, and was published in 2023. I'd read Murderbot a couple of months ago. I'd actually been following Martha Wells on Twitter for quite a while, and then now I follow her on X, and she's always nice to follow. She's such a earnest person online, and I highly recommend following her. She's got some interesting points of views, and her Murderbot series is fantastic. I mean, basically the premise is that Murderbot is a sec unit droid who hacks his governor chip, which allows him to become fully in control of himself, fully sapient and sentient, and in control of what he deems is important. He spends most of his time while watching his very fragile and delicate humans watching soap operas and other sorts of dramas that are popular. He actually kind of uses them as a way to learn about human emotions, because he doesn't really understand his emotions. Or I keep saying him, but Murderbot isn't it. It does not really gender itself, even though the sec unit itself has a masculine face. That doesn't mean that it is masculine. And generally, I've heard it described by people as a fantastic representation of autism in literature. So if that's something that if you're neurodivergent and you want to see yourself represented a little bit in books, it might be a good place to start. Mickey7 follows an expendable with a capital E expendable, that he basically, through poor decision making and bad bets, got himself into a significant gambling debt, and so decides to sign up to join this ship that's starting a new colony on another planet. And as an expendable, his memories are perfectly extracted and copied and stored, and he is trained to think about the idea of himself as a ship of Theseus. You know, if you saw WandaVision, they talk about ship of Theseus in that.
You are familiar with the thought experiment, the ship of Theseus, in the field of identity metaphysics?
Naturally. The ship of Theseus is an artifact in a museum. Over time, its planks of wood rot and are replaced with new planks. When no original plank remains, is it still the ship of Theseus?
But then the question is, what happens if you replace everything all at once? Is that also the ship of Theseus? What's the difference between doing it in a short period of time or all at once? That makes a lot of sense, because Mickey7 is expected to put his life on the line and die. Like, they will kill him. They know that he will die, and his body will be regrown from a organic printer, since at this point it's easy to 3D print organs, skeletal structures, and all that. It's relatively low cost because humans need to eat this stuff, everything that we're made of anyway. So it's just printing all of that and then putting in the brain part his memories, which kind of makes an interesting dichotomy here, because on the one hand, in a lot of places, we think of robots or droids as the expendable. Like in our current world right now, we're more likely to send a robot to Mars than we are to a person, because whenever the robot dies there, it can just stay there. And if we ever get to Mars, we can bring it back and, you know, put it in a museum or scrap it and use that material for something else. Because of the sheer distances that these people are traveling and the shocking resiliency of humans, that we continue living after we're already dead and continue working after we're already dead. Think of a lot of the people from Chernobyl. If you watch that show,
the valve will be difficult to operate, so we'll need 3 men who'll need to know the basement layout. And of course, any volunteers will be rewarded. A yearly stipend of 400 rubles.
Do you even know how contaminated it is?
I don't have an exact number.
You don't need an exact number to know if it will kill us. But you can't even tell us that. Why should we do this? For what, 400 rubles?
You'll do it because it must be done.
They were going in, and if they went into some areas for more than 3 minutes, they were going to have a lethal dose of radiation. Well, some people went into places where they knew they were going to get a lethal dose of radiation because that was the only way they could actually stop the ongoing critical reaction. So they sacrificed themselves. And the same thing happened with Fukushima. There's a whole group of people who are elder Japanese that went into this place because they knew that they'd lived a good life and that they were going to die when they did this, but they were able to continue doing the work. We know that in some cases, robots or controlled devices, remote controlled devices, they don't do well in those environments, and that the electronics in it degrade pretty quickly. And so that means that even though the shell of the thing itself might be perfectly fine, the electronics in it are fried, so it can't do anything else. So in that regard, humans are able to continue working well past what a lot of robots are. And because of the ease of printing a new person, it makes it easier to replace that person than it does a robot, because in a new colony, you're very constrained by what metals you can bring. Everything is about energy and weight and all of that. And the other thing that's interesting about this is that with Mickey, he is able to continually upload or frequently upload his memories. So he's able to learn from his deaths. And in some cases, he is expected to continually upload throughout his entire death experience. And other times he's only expected to watch his death. And it kind of depends on what the people around him want him to learn. And that really fucks him up. I mean, people get fucked up pretty badly from near-death experiences. If you watch The Pit and you see if you watch The Pit and you watch the mass shooting episodes, you really see the impact on Dr. Robbie, and you see the impact on the survivors. It's a big deal. So having a character who is expected to know that he is going to die and then relive his death and talk about his death is really a fucked up thing to do. I think that both of these are really interesting characters and kind of an interesting character study on the expendable character. In our society, we generally do believe that there are expendable people. Whether that is something that polite society discusses or not, it's true. And I think that you know, my last video where I talked about Blood Over Brighthaven and the and Hidden Figures, there are examples of those expendable people. And of course, during U.S.'s period where we enslaved people, those people were 100% expendable. They weren't considered people, they were considered animals. And we consider animals generally expendable, that we can do whatever we want with them if they, in terms of labor. Now, being intentionally cruel to them is something different, but in terms of doing something, yes, animals are expendable. And people are expendable. Entire classes of people are expendable. And so these two characters are both different perspectives on what it means to be an expendable hero or an expendable person, where the sec units are generally, you know, sold at the lowest bidder and not always in the best conditions. They're not given the best tools. They are the minimum set of security that somebody might need. And often they're not sufficient. And they break down, they fail, they die, and then they get sent back to the company and refurbished or destroyed and reused for scrap. But they're not treated as people by anybody, except whenever, of course, the humans around, except for Murderbot, whenever he is found to have turned off his governor, and that he does have emotions and is a thinking being, it causes a lot of problems for the humans, that they have to consider that this person isn't a mindless automaton that doesn't consider its own well-being. And I think that in America, in a lot of ways, we treat immigrants and non-white Americans as second-class citizens, which is abhorrent, and we need to do better. And they are expendable. I mean, look at what some of the laws that Texas has put into place for water breaks around for agriculture is just unconscionable. So a person like Mickey isn't exactly new, and especially if Mickey Barnes is an Irish person, and the Irish were literal slaves of the British. You can kind of think of Mickey as especially since the Mick is kind of the name Mick is a somewhat derogatory term for an Irish person. You can kind of see how that is an extension of that Irish slave idea of an expendable Irishman, and it definitely aligns with history. The interesting thing about this story is that each really do dig into how humans interact with these expendable characters. So with Mickey, he has a friend who he knew from the before times, before he goes on this colony trip, who he actually bet against, that got him into the debt. And that person really doesn't care for Mickey as a person, other than as a tool that can be used to advance his own career. And in the cases where his friend is even mildly inconvenienced by having to rescue Mickey, or which is the inciting incident in the book, he won't do it. But he will risk his own life for like his own glory, which Mickey finds out later and is furious about, because people who are supposed to care about him treat him as expendable as well. And he learns that he is not important to those people. I mean, he does have a girlfriend who does care very strongly about him, and it leads to a very interesting three-way with Mickey7, Mickey8, and his girlfriend. She also had an opportunity to go save him at that inciting incident, but Mickey wanted to make sure she was safe, so she was upset about the fact that, she becomes very upset about the fact that Mickey7 returns and that she could have potentially saved him. On the other hand, Murderbot, its name makes humans uncomfortable, because Murderbot does kill humans that attack the scientists if they are like, rogue or criminals or whatever you want to call them. But Murderbot also kills other sec units. If his group of humans are being attacked by another group of humans that have sec units, he will have to murder the other sec units. And he also has to murder the militarized versions that are much more hardened, that have... Sec unit basically has mostly the same physicality as a human, a little bit stronger bones. But there are military grade units that are fully armored, that have much more powerful weaponry than Murderbot. And he is expected to defend his people from even those military bots. And so he is putting his life on the line, and it creates a lot of difficulty for the humans because they don't want Murderbot to die. But Murderbot also believes that this is its job, and this is the only thing it knows how to do, and it would be scrapped if it was caught doing anything otherwise. So that's where a lot of the tension comes in with that story. So whenever I was reading Mickey7, I thought about Metallica's song Disposable Heroes, which is about kids who are sent to die in some war that doesn't really feel like there's any meaning or anything at all. And that is a theme within a number of Metallica songs. And I think one is really the best example of that. Here's a link to the music video. And that song and that video is about a book called, and film, Johnny Got His Gun, which is an anti-war movie and book written after World War I, where the protagonist is has lost all arms and legs, lost his eyesight, and because he has a tube in his throat, he's unable to speak because it feeds him and forces him to breathe. And so he can hear, and he can feel when people touch him, and kind of feel whenever people come into the room.
I don't know whether I'm alive and dreaming or dead and remembering. How can you tell what's a dream and what's real when you can't even tell when you're awake and when you're asleep? Where am I? Please make them hear me. They won't listen. They won't hear me. Oh, wake me up. I'll be like this for years. Hear me.
And he is an example of one of these disposable heroes. And that's really what the book is arguing about. And that book goes into the patriotism that is required to get people to behave this way, and in a sense that is mirrored in Mickey, because he has to do these things that will kill him. And Sec Unit Murderbot has to do the same thing. He has to put himself out there, and he is treated as disposable by the world around him. And the cost of that to the person who is disposable is immeasurable. And and Johnny Got His Gun really shows that, especially because the times whenever he is awake and the times that is intercut with him going up into making the decision. The love of his life is shown. He was engaged. He was going to get married when he came back. And all the friends he had, the joyous life he had, and now the only way he can communicate is with Morse code, tapping with his head. And eventually a priest figures out that he is saying that he's alive in Morse code. He's doing SOS. And it's a very tragic story. And I think that while these books allow these characters to go from being expendable to becoming valuable to the people around them, I think it's clear, it's implied in Mickey7 that the leader of that colony is probably going to make another Mickey7 or make a Mickey9. And Mickey7 will exist, but Mickey9 is going to just resume where Mickey7 left off. There is always going to be an expendable person on that world, and Mickey is always going to be that expendable person. And I think it's important to think about that, because we really do treat a lot of people in our world as expendable. And in Blood Over Brighthaven, that's the Quen. In the United States, it's often immigrants, Mexicans, it's the people who are coming up from the global south, it's disabled. And I think that these books offer a unique way to safely interrogate those ideas and root for one of those people as a hero. And I really love that. I really love these books. They were both really well written, and I really recommend reading Murderbot, the entire series. Murderbot goes on to some amazing relationships that are great. I mean, I definitely recognize some of those relationships, those like love relationships, as in my own struggles with some of them, and growing to understand how to be a better partner. And Murderbot has to go through that same thing. Mickey7's the same way. He needs to learn how to be a better partner. And I think that they really do show that these characters are worthy of dignity and respect, and I think all humans are worthy of dignity and respect. So I'll leave it at that point here. I hope you go and check out both of these books. The links are in the description below. It's a link to my affiliate for bookshop.org. Yeah, check them out. And if you have any recommendations for other books or want to continue the conversation in the comments below, please do. And again, please like, comment, subscribe. Thank you very much for watching. It really means a lot to me. Even whenever I only have a handful of people watching, it means the world to me. So I really appreciate your time. I know you could be doing anything else. So I hope you have a good one. Thank you. Bye.